everybody. Welcome back to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. Today, I have the lovely Roland back with us, and we're going to be talking about near-death experiences, initiations, life path, and purpose. And I will say that all of this for me started because of a squirrel. I emailed Roland and we were talking about this and I asked him if he could share his near-death experience with us again because of a squirrel. I was outside in my backyard and I had been doing a little bit of recording for the channel. And as I go back in the house, I hear all of this scurrying across the roof. And I look up, I don't see anything. And then I hear my cat meowing. And I thought my cat was stuck on the roof. So I'm looking around, I move around the house, and then I notice there's a squirrel on the edge of the roof with a pine cone in his mouth. Now, I've never seen a squirrel with a pine cone in his mouth. I will be 1,000% honest. We have a pecan tree, we have acorns. So like those are the things that I always see the squirrels eating, even mushrooms. I have never seen a squirrel with a pine cone in his mouth. So I'm like, wow, that's really weird. And what he's trying to do is jump from the roof onto the pine tree, but because of this pine cone, he can't jump. So he's going to have to go down. But my cat's there meowing, trying to kill him, right? So I'm trying to chase the cat off and I'm trying to block the cat and the cat's running around me. And so it's turning into this chaotic, crazy thing. And I look at this squirrel and I said, just get up the tree and get out of here. A pine cone. I said, of course, I was in my home language. So I was going, a pine cone ain't worth dying for. Get out of here, squirrel. It ain't worth dying for. And then I come back in and it was such a strange scene that I looked it up online. And apparently pine nuts from inside of pine cones are a squirrel's primary food source. I never knew that. So they actually create like larders of pine cones for themselves. They have like a whole cache of pine cones and pine nuts that they eat on when they're storing for winter. So I came inside and sat down and I was like thinking about the chaos of this and how that's actually their primary source. And I don't really know why, but it feels like the near death of what this squirrel was going through in order to have life later made me think of the near-death experience and how quite often I believe these near-death experiences or these death experiences that we then come back from end up activating, awakening something inside of us or setting us on a life path and in alignment with our purpose. Sometimes even with initiations, which I believe happened during your near-death experience. So I wanted to get you back on and let's talk about that. Where do you want to start? Because it's such an experience to have.
Yeah, it is. And I can say that as we were speaking earlier, is for me, mine came back as I was reminded of it. Let's say that because I was almost about to turn 5 years old. It was a summer, and I was probably within a month or two of turning 5. So I was a little kid, and as we spoke, it's things are different when you have your NDE as a little kid, and it's I also believe most of us don't remember them, just like a lot of things when we're little, or even younger. But mine got reminded through a hypnotherapy session, and part of the information back from it was like, oh, I'm kind of already doing some of this, so it was like a reminder of it happened, but like, okay, you got to you're on the track, but we got to keep going. Here's a little more information. Here's a little more. And I'm still working on that information. It's one of those things. It's like you think about it after a while, or even after like a discussion here, something else will come to me afterwards. Like, oh yeah, that means that too. It's just the more you kind of delve into it. But so yeah, we'll see where it goes, see what happens.
So what I heard through that is that you had the near-death experience as a child, 4 or 5 years old, didn't remember it, wasn't talked about after the healing process. And then as an adult, you went under hypnotherapy, relived, remembered the entire thing, and it gave you information about your life path and purpose that you said you were already doing some of that because you were
Some of it.
already aligned with that path, but some of it, it was that reminder, like this is what you should be moving towards, or the reason we're doing why we're doing. So why did you go to the hypnotherapist to begin with? Was there anything like leading up to that? Did you have any inkling that this had happened before?
So, the actual reasoning going to the hypnotherapist, I don't remember. I knew this individual before. We crossed paths several times before and always enjoyed their energy. But why exactly I went to them, I don't really remember. But as far as the inkling building up to it, yes. Already was doing client work and had been for a few years. And one client that I worked with many times, very much, medium individual, mediumship type person, always getting messages. And at the end of one of our really in-depth sessions with her, doing a lot of really going deep energy, um, she brought out, she said, one of these things every once in a while she would say, spirit's got a message for you if you're willing to hear it or whatever. And it was like, okay, sure, whatever. And she said, oh, you died in this life. And I was like, no, I didn't. No, I haven't. And it's like, oh yeah, they're saying you did. And it was just kind of got dropped at that. And it's like, okay. And I remember thinking, is it wrong or is it, mistaken or whatever? And just then you forget about it. And literally a week later, working with a different client and somebody with mediumship abilities, and daggum, they didn't say at the end of a session, it's like, did you know you died in this life? And I'm like, are you serious? so okay, and I didn't tell her anything about the other one, nor did I say I'd already received this before. But so that was kind of in the back of the mind, but I was not going to the hypnotherapist for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to the hypnotherapist because of dealing with claustrophobic issues, and more specifically, claustrophobia on an airplane,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just got to the point where I was not going to willing to fly. It's like that really restricts you and stuff. And I will tell you that hypnotherapy session touched nothing on claustrophobia. We didn't even happen close to it.
I bet it did. But you have to get into the NDE to understand how it did, right?
Well, you might be very well right. It's just with everything else that came to me in that NDE, and the hypnotherapy session. When we got finished, he was like, how long do you think this was? And I was in and out, in and out. And I said, I don't know, hour and a half. It was a little over 3 hours. Like,
Wow.
oh, wow. So it was just, it's like everything just kept going and going and going. But so yeah, it's the information, other people telling me that spirit was saying to them, you died. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Well, I guess I did. So, but what's also interesting is when that event happened. In short, I fell as a kid. I fell head first on concrete. Fell like 9 feet, and you know, I had memories of the fall, and I always remember seeing myself, the actual fall and hitting, and my brother was nearby, and I hear my mom off a little bit in distance. She sees that I've fallen. I'm already on the ground. I can see over there. I hear her yell twice, like, don't touch him. And, you just play the memories in your head for all your life. And I just remember this. And I remember and never thought nothing about these until the hypnotherapy session. Like the next scene, I'm like here and I'm seeing my brother, my mother, and me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not me laying on my back looking at them. I'm here, a little higher, and looking at them. And I always had that mirror in my head. I could see myself there. Never perceived that I was not down on the floor on the ground. And then I remember being that lasted for a moment. Then I was unconscious. And then the next thing I remember is I could see from the top of the car, looking down into the seat. It was one of those cars from the 60s where it had the bench seat. And my head is my dad's lap and my feet are my mom's lap. And I could see all three of us. But I'm not looking up at them, I'm looking down at them. And I was always knew I could remember the car, remember the traveling going there and everything. And until the NDE was like, or into the hypnotherapy session, like I wasn't supposed to be looking at it from that way. I was supposed to be looking up at my dad with my head in his lap. And I never saw that view. I always saw from like their shoulders down looking at them. So anybody that has any kind of memories like that, think about it. What's the angle? Is the right angle? You might be need to check a little further into it. But it's just all the information was there. It's just you don't process it like that as a kid. Just you kind of got through it, and then once the hypnotherapy session, then everything just kind of started coming out. It's like, oh yeah, oh okay, that makes sense.
So this is how you ended up with the death experience, how your soul ended up out of your body. How did you fall? Where did you fall?
The farm. It's the farm I have now. With these things called in-ground bunker silos. So essentially, it's a place where we stored fermented feeds for the cattle. It used to be a dairy farm at the time. And so dirt walls, concrete floor, and we would store stuff in there, fermented feeds, and cover it. So it was about roughly, let's say, 9 feet deep. So it wasn't like a massively long fall, but when you're 4 years old, that was long enough. And it just, my brother used to say I went down like a missile, head first, arms weren't even out. It just, my arms didn't hit first, my head hit first. So that's where I fell.
Well, it sounds like, just throwing this nugget out there, it sounds like in your hypnotherapy session, what ended up coming up was that silo could have been what was causing the restriction or the claustrophobia in general, and then everything else just spiraled out of it. Like this was a moment in time, packed inside a moment in time, packed inside a moment of time to kind of bloom like a flower at the appropriate time to remind you of your life path and purpose. Just my thoughts on that. I'm not sure how you feel about that.
Not bad thoughts. Well, I say it's all possible because it's how, after what the hypnotherapy information was, I think 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's been 6 years, 5, 6 years now since I received that. I guess 6 years, and each time I go back to it, I feel like I learn a little bit more. So you don't have me thinking about that. Oh,
Get you thinking.
huh?
I love to get you thinking.
So yeah, it's even like as I've gone back to it, even after talking to several other podcasts with people about it and doing different things along it, I even come back into certain parts of it just realize, oh, it's kind of a message there in that part, or there's a little part there too in that part, or kind of understanding or some kind of meaning. So I think there's a lot with people in NDEs. If we just keep going back to it, we can learn more, go a little further.
Mm-hmm. So we know how your soul came out of your body, which was the physical death or near death experience. What happened to your soul while it was out of your body? Did it stay there watching everything like your car on the way to the hospital, or did you have a journey?
It was very much a journey, very much a journey. So no, it was not there at the car very long. So it's like I see it where the area of the fall, and then it was in the car, and then I was, the whole thing was it was a yellowish, golden yellowish light that pulled me away, and it's like as it was pulling, I could see them, but when I turned and looked, it's like where I was going, and then you look back, my parents are gone, everything was changed, but yeah, my journey dealt with 3 parts basically, which is the gentleman that pulled me through the majority of it, all the lost souls, and then the group of 11 that took me into another whole area towards the end, where the whole bolt of energy hit me and everything. So it was very much a journey, and literally a journey of walking and traveling in a vastness of nothingness. It was so. Yeah. Anything particular you want to ask? Or you just want me to
Yeah,
jump?
I want to know the story. We
Okay.
talked about this on the channel years and years ago. But for those who don't know or who missed it, you're kind of breaking your journey down into three parts. Basically, the guide or the gentleman, lost souls, and then the group of 11 at the end. So at the beginning, you said your soul was pulled away from the earth, away from the car by this golden light, and then where did you end up?
Literally, it was a vastness of like nothing. It wasn't even like amongst the stars or the planets or anything. It's like being in space, but nothing. Like there's nothing around us, but yet I'm being pulled by this person, and literally by the hand pulling me. So there's this man pulling, and I'm back as that child again in that space, of course, and he's just steadily walking, dark hair, dark skin, plain tan type clothes, loose fitting clothes, and he's just steady walking, walking, walking. He's pulling me right along. And I know some people have these amazing peaceful scenarios with NDEs, and for me in the beginning, it was kind of panicky. It was, a little kid kind of freaking out. I'm being pulled away by this guy that I have no clue, never seen before. But what I've said in a lot of other podcasts is my head is going crazy and thinking, and it's like the fear is up here, but the energy coming off, always remember the energy coming off from his hand to mine into my chest was calm,
Mm.
but the mind was going 1,000 miles a minute. It was just constantly going and going and going, and me like, why won't he let me go? Why is he pulling me? Where are we going? It's just literally all through that hypnotherapy session, the NDE, all these questions. I'm like in my head, and I'm even pulling back, and he's just pulling right along. And but it was such, my thoughts were going, but the arm and the chest was calm, and I kept going. I really wasn't like, I could have been screaming and having a fit and laying on the ground, all that, but it was like I'm walking, so I was at peace enough to walk with him, and I just knew I got to a point where I was like, "Why won't he let me go? Why won't he let me go?" And but I'm not saying anything out loud. Nothing is like dead silent. Nothing is happening. It's just this vastness. There's nothing around us, and it's like you can look down, and it's the exact same thing as looking up. It's like you're walking on something, but there's nothing there. And it's the same everywhere. It's like, but I could see fine, but everything looked black. But I could see everything just perfectly fine, like there was no issues. And as I'm like, why don't you let me go? And I'm at that point where I'm no longer looking back. That's what was behind me with the parents is long gone, and the mind is just spinning, and then all of a sudden he stops, and well, let me back up. That's when the soul started kind of coming in here. When I when I say souls, they weren't like peaceful. They were uneasy. Some may call them lost souls or what have you, but darker colors, grayish, gray blues, gray blacks, gray oranges, really darker. And I could feel their uneasiness. Some of them were angry, some of them were sad, some of them were depressed. You can just feel the uneasiness, which didn't make me feel much better. I don't know what I'm doing, what I'm at, and this guy's pulling us along and pulling me along. And so if you can envision, like you're going this way, and these souls are coming back towards you, and it's like they're coming from all these angles. Like we're literally walking into the crowds,
Mm.
And as we keep walking, I see them get more and more. So it went from like 5 to 10 to 20 to 100 to 1,000, 2,000, just massive amounts. And they always funnel in towards us, and they're all leaning to us and looking at us. And it got to the point where I was like, only thing I'm looking at is the back of his head, because I was so uneasy with these things coming around. And I was walking, I felt calm, but in my head, I'm going like, just look at him, just look at him. Don't look at anything else. Don't look at them. Don't pay any attention. And that's when he stopped and turned to me. And I remember at that moment going, why are we stopping? Why are we stopping? I'm at this point now. Let's get going. I don't want to be here. These things are around. Everything was uneasy. And he literally stops, and I can't remember if he put like his hand on my back or up on my shoulder, but it helped me calm down some. Mine's still going, and he's like pointing, and he's like doing this, like they're waiting for you. That didn't really help. Because the mind's going, what do you mean? In what way? And you just keep remembering, I'm not an adult. I'm this little kid that's yay high, not even 5 years old yet. So, and he says something like Earth souls helping lost souls.
Mm.
And I had no, as a 4-year-old, I would have no comprehension of that. And even as an adult, I've, thought about it for a while. And, we got going further and further, got walking again. And I'm walking a little easier with him, but I'm still kind of hesitant. And my mind is still going, and I'm saying, why me? Instead of like, why won't he let me go? Now it's, why me? Why are they waiting for me? But I never had the thought of what did I do wrong? Anything like that. It was just like, things were shifting. It wasn't so much a panic. It was like, why? I don't understand. I don't understand why, why me? There was some nervousness kind of thing, but it wasn't like a fear. Like it was, the unsettling fear was gone, I guess you can say. But the crowds of these people, these lost souls, are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I kept going through, why me? And he stopped for the second time and looked at me again, excuse me, and looks at me, looks at them, looks back at me, and says, I chose you. And then everything just like went, everything just calmed down. My mind just, everything's like it quit doing that spinning and spinning like we get into when we're kind of in a panic situation. And everything just like, and it's like the noise in my head went silent.
Mm.
And, it's like at that moment I felt okay. Like I'm all right. And he started walking again. Wait a minute, actually, maybe he did stop again, but, or either it was just before he started walking again. It's like somewhere in that phrase, that time frame, he was either just started walking again or he stopped again. I can't really remember exactly, but it's like he looked back and he says, you were there in the beginning. And then it was just like this. It wasn't like kneeling down to me, literally just like, oh yeah, you were there in the beginning. And we just took off again. But from that point, he was no longer pulling me. We were walking, and I was walking behind him. And I was calm enough to the point that I looked behind me, and that's when I realized the souls were changing colors as they passed us.
Mm.
That they were becoming lighter. They weren't, let's say if you were taking a mixture of gray and black and blue, and this dark heaviness kind of a feeling within them. When they passed, the gray lifted and their blue became much brighter. And instead of looking at us like all focused on us, as soon as they got past us, they were looking at their arms and their bodies and looking at each other. And then all of a sudden, it's like as further we got away, the more they started interacting with each other and kind of going off in groups and different things. And it was just the amount of energy behind us was I mean, I was feeling this energy off this person that was just circulating through me. But whenever I look back, you can just feel all the energy behind you because all this change. And it was just, I was so intrigued. It's like I would look at him and I would go back and look at them, and he's not paying any attention. He's just plowing along.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like enjoying, it was no longer, it's like I was so intrigued seeing them come up to me and feeling how crappy they were. But then I can look back and watch them go by and they change, and everything was like, oh wow, that is cool. That was like amazing. And then one of the times I was looking back and forth and looked back to him, and then there's 11 people standing in front of us, not standing, walking in front of us in a V formation, such that we're in the middle of that V formation, and it's like they're parting the waves of people going through the people, so they're spreading them further out. And I remember going, where did they come from? I mean, literally just in 1 second, looking forward and looking back, all of a sudden there's these 11 people just kind of plowing through the group, and they're wearing white robes, and they're just walking along, and we're still just walking along. And the vastness hasn't changed. It's still, and it's just the crowds of the souls getting bigger and bigger. And it's like, okay, there's no sounds, no nothing. It's just the feeling of the energy and stuff. And then, I mean, as a kid, I'm still looking around, like, trying to check things out. I look behind us again and look forward, and everything changed. Everything was completely different. We were no longer walking. I wasn't even walking. It's like, when did I stop walking? And went from this vastness of nothingness to a grassy area, like a really large, like a little small meadow, or a really huge yard that's kind of encased in trees, but just something you would see somewhere here on Earth. And there's grass underneath my feet, and I'm just kind of looking around, and then I realized right in front of me there's 11 people in a circle, and at their feet is a circle of stones about the size of a baseball, and in the middle of that circle is another circle of stones, maybe 3 feet in diameter. And I'm just in that puzzling state. What the heck happened? Where'd the guy go? What, everything was it's just like that. Everything was completely different. And it's like, where am I at? Where am I at on Earth here? What, am I close to home, kind of a thing? And as a kid, I'm looking around, and then all of a sudden it's like, they moved me, and I'm standing in that little circle in the center. So I'm in the center of their circle. And as you can imagine, it's like, or anybody, kid or not, I'm like, what happened? But I'm still calm. I'm not like, I'm just intrigued. It's like, well, what is this? What's happening? And then there's the one guy, I guess like the main guy. It was men and women, this whole thing. And they had me facing this one guy, and I look at him and I realize he's coming towards me, real nice and easy. He comes towards me, and several things happened from that. It was just the tingling in my arms through my shoulders as he got closer. It was just crazy. It was just like, it's like the tingling you would have when your arms go to sleep, but it doesn't hurt. It's just, the tingling. And even anybody that does some energy work now, if you feel some serious tingling, like this amazing sensation, just multiply that numerous times. And I just remember going, what in the, what is this? Everything was cool. It wasn't anything afraid. He just kept slowly coming forward. But as he got a little closer, he was doing something with his hands, and he kept saying to me, he wasn't saying out loud, I could hear his thoughts, or his words, follow me, do this, do this. And it was like, he was serious, like, do these movements, do these movements. And I remember kind of somewhat going, but I was just like, everything was just vibrating. It was like, what in the world? So I honestly do not remember if I continued, if I did much, but I just remember just like, because then it started building up my body and stuff. And I'm so looking at my hands. I look at him, look back at my hands and stuff. And I could hear the rest of them making a sound like saying "Om," but I
Mm.
don't know if they were always doing it or if it was just started. But I just remember at that time, and I looked up at him, and his face is now glowing, and I can't see his face. He's like bright yellow, and I can't see his face. and once again, I'm just kind of looking around, and then he's backing up. He stopped the whole hands movement. He's backing up, but I could see each one of them was wearing a medallion, like a hammered metal medallion with two circles on it, two rings on it. But um, I'm sitting there, and the energy's building up, and then it's like, bam! I got hit with a, I don't know if you want to call it a bolt or a shock of energy, and it shook my whole body. It shook me completely. And I'll say at the hypnotherapy session, the therapist said I came off the table about 2 inches, which freaked her out. I mean, it did. And I don't remember doing that at the session, but I just remember being in with the NDE again. It's like it disoriented me so much that I couldn't see, I couldn't focus. Everything was just shaking. I was vibrating extremely high. And then when things started settling down, and I can now see it again. I see what was going on. I was still in the center of that circle, but that group 11 was walking away from me. They were already 50 feet beyond me and gone. And I'm finally come out of this. And I remember at that time going, where are they going? What now? Now what? And within a moment, I was back with that guy in the vastness and still shaking like crazy. But we're not walking. He's kneeling beside me, hand on my back, kneeling beside me, looking at me. And we're not talking, but I can hear him. And he's saying, it's time for you to go back.
Mm.
And my mind was starting to spin again. And my thoughts are coming to me. It was like, I can't do what you're asking me to do. But at the time, I don't even know what that was. And he says, it's okay, you can do it. And I'm going, what is it? What do what? What is it? And I don't think I can do it. And he's like, it's okay, you can do it. And then I wake up in the car. So mind you, that was really short and condensed, going from the 3-hour session I had and all that information to this. But that's what what it was. That's what it entailed.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It's so exciting. And there was like a part where I felt it was so climactic. It was like, it could be a movie. When I process with you the things that I learned during your NDE, because I feel like this is something that anybody can take away from not only your story, but from their own story, even if they don't have a near-death experience. It can still, there's these elements are still there in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
you broke it down into 3 parts before you even began, which I think was completely guided, because you have the guide, the lost souls, and then the 11. And when you're talking about the guide, this reminded me of guidance and trust, because everything there was a fight between your heart and your mind. It was my hand and my heart feel really calm, but my mind is chaotic and crazy, and I don't know what's happening. So there's that fight there of having to trust our guidance, having to trust that we're being guided where we need to be.
And get out of this. Get out of this. That was exactly the info or the lesson or the awareness of part of the different parts. And to me, it's always seemed like it was kind of like 3 different parts as I broke it down. As one is that, well, let me just say this: the NDE information was huge, and it's like after I had the hypnotherapy session, I went home and I'm writing it stuff down and in talking to people about it, and I actually didn't talk to hardly anybody about it for a few, I don't know, maybe probably 3 years before I even really talked to anybody about it. And um, when I started talking to people about it, the first half of it, I struggled with remembering.
Mm.
The later half, I once the part where I said I chose you and everything calmed down, from that on, I remember. It was like, it, and I would have to go back and literally look at my notes of the first half, like, why can't I remember this? Why can't I remember this? And then it finally hit one day. I'm sitting getting ready for another podcast. Somebody wanted to hear the story, and I'm literally asking, like, why can't I remember this? And it's like your head's getting in your way.
Mm.
That's what it did. The NDE, you were in your head, and we were trying to connect you. Look here, feel here, and you were up here, which is what we do as people. We don't, like you said, don't trust.
Mm-hmm. And so, in the summary of the three parts, the first part is the trusting, getting out of your head, going with your heart, and allowing the guidance. The second part, which was the lost souls, is basically the life purpose part, the destiny part, that here's how you contribute. This is what you were meant for part. That was the part where you're being shown, regardless of how scary it was, what you're capable of, even if you weren't able to perceive it in that moment because you were 5.
Right.
And I think a lot of us get those inklings or hear things, but we're not sure where it's going to come about. For instance, I remember being maybe 7 at my grandparents' house in Alabama, laying down to sleep, and I couldn't sleep, and everyone else was snoring. And I was staring at the nightlight in the wall, and I heard a voice clear as day say, "You're going to be a missionary." And I started crying because I was like, "No, I don't want to," because I grew up in the Bible Belt. What is a missionary? It's a person who goes to another country and says, "This is what religion is, and you should follow it or you're going to hell." And it seemed scary. You know what I mean? But now that I'm an adult, I realize there's many different ways to be of mission,
Mm-hmm.
to be of service,
Right.
to help. And just like what you said, I'm still walking that path, because by the time I complete my path, my journey is done and I'm probably going to be dying. So it's like this is always unfolding for
Yeah.
us as we go through. The third part of this story, in summary, was the 11, which I feel like is the alignment part, the activation part, where you're being put on that path. It's the initiation part. One thing that always stood out to me about the form of shamanism that you and I have learned is that I have been taught that traditional shamans in the Andes, they are called shaman when they get struck by lightning, because they go up and they live on these mountains, and that's their thing. They live on the mountains, they collect their ancient wisdom, and they hope they get struck by lightning and live, because this is their initiation from the gods, right? And you got struck by lightning in your entity. On the soul level, you got struck by such a huge amount of energy that even in the future, in your adult body, you jumped 2 inches off the table and gave your hypnotherapist a heart attack and she almost fell off of her chair.
Mm-hmm.
Like this jolt of energy.
Yes.
And so I learned 4 things from your NDE. The first one is that spirit won't give up. And that's why we can trust. That guide did not give up on you. You were saying, "Let me go. I want to go back. Why are you doing this?" And
Yes.
he's like, "Kiddo, you're going to be just fine. I promise." And he just kept pulling you along. Spirit will not give up on us. And that's why we eventually learn to trust that and to quiet our head, because we learn over time that the heart's not going to give up, that the heart is always ready. The heart is always steady. It's the beat. that we can rely on. And no matter what the head does, we're always eventually going to come back to the heart because it's steady, it's reliable, it's trusting,
Yeah.
right? The second thing I learned is that I have value, I have worth, and I have purpose. Because in the second group, when you stopped saying, "Why won't you let me go?" and you started saying, "Why me?" This is where we switched from, "Okay, I trust you now, but do I love myself enough and have enough confidence to know I can do the thing that you're telling me I can do?" So when I learned to trust, the second thing I can learn from this is that my life has value. I have worth. I'm here on this earth because I have something to contribute to society. Nobody is here without worth or value.
Correct. Correct.
The third thing I learned is that initiation, whether given from the spirits, whether given from earth spirits and earth gods, or self initiation, it is your divine right. It is our divine right to be initiated, to take on our path and power. This is where we accept all of our power, all of our worth, all of our trust, our where we're going with life. And there's something that's been very valuable about self initiation coming up, I think, over the last year, but the last few months specifically, a lot of rites of passage, self initiations. You don't always have to be initiated by a teacher or a healer or a elder in the community, although those are moments of honor. It's knowing that spirit can initiate you, that you can say, "You know what, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to be powerful in doing it, and I'm going to create a ceremony and initiate myself into this." Do you have any thoughts on self initiation?
I don't know that I do actually.
Hmm.
Out of all the things, and I'll be honest with you, as you're talking, I'm putting those pieces together, going, okay, okay. It's always good to get somebody else's perspective of it because when I'm in it, I'm seeing it as one way. So I'm basically enjoying your view or feel of it.
Well, I asked for a reason. I don't know the reason, of course. Spirit knows the reason, which means even though you were initiated at that time, have you self initiated? And you don't have to answer that. Have you, we know that you're walking the path. We know that you're understanding your worth and your value and you're confident in that. We understand that you're doing the work. But has there ever been a moment when you really looked at this jacket of your alignment and your purpose and decided to take it on and looked in the mirror and said, "I look really good in this jacket of crossing over lost souls. Like, this is my purpose and what I'm doing." Like, have you initiated yourself on that heart level? I think that there's something to connecting those dots between spirit initiation and spirit saying, "This is what you're supposed to do," and you choosing to do the thing that you were told to do. And maybe not even you specifically, but the people out there watching, because there's a lot of people out there who want to do things but haven't quite felt the pull or the call yet. And there's a lot of people who have felt the pull and the call, but then they feel like they don't have free will. They're like, "Oh, well, spirit's always just telling me what to do. And when do I get to choose what I want to do?" So this is when you get to align those two things.
Yeah.
But I did learn a fourth thing, interestingly. And the fourth thing that I learned is that there is an integration process. So that self initiation, that was like the climax, right? You're hit by the lightning. There's this this chanting circle of 11 spirits around you, and everyone's sending you love and energy. That's the climax. But then what do you do with regular life when you're back at home? There's the integration period. And what I learned is that during the integration period, that's when self doubt and fear creep in. You've
Mm-hmm.
had the climax, now you're down here, you know everything that you know, but now you've got to learn how to balance the heart and the head again, almost like it's going in a circle of remembrance, of balance, of reminding so that you can live that path appropriately.
Yeah, because that's definitely what was happening, and it did happen in the with the NDE. It was like there was the high, and then it came back. It's like, all right, you're getting ready to be thrown into the trial, the test. You're gonna, and same the test. It's like you're here. You go. Here it is, but we're still, we're still human, and it's still, the journeys and the trials and the tribulations and everything else that you want to, however you want to describe it, but it's it's there for us to run with, but it's there. It's
So I would dare say that your NDE actually has a fourth part to it. Your NDE did not end with your initiation and then boom, you're back. Your NDE is ending with the test, the journey. Like this is the fourth part of it, which is why it's still processing through, because it's
Yep,
still happening even today.
yep, still processing.
I like that your group had 11 people in it, because 11 in numerology is like a master number. It's considered the most intuitive number. And I just want to read this. It's a powerful master number representing intuition, spiritual insight, and visionary leadership, amplifying the qualities of the number one. It's associated with heightened sensitivity, creativity, and a deep connection to the spiritual realm, making individuals with this number strong spiritual messengers, teachers, and healers. However, the intense energy of the 11 can also lead to inner conflict, self-doubt, fear of failure, and requires the balance between its powerful potential and grounding. What are the odds?
What are the odds? Exactly. I've had numerous people over the last, really, 3 years since I've been telling about the that they thought the 11 were. It's interesting. I end up getting the 11 is. I've had several people try to tell me the 11 is the 11 that was with Jesus. 11 was this part, 11 of that, but it is, I believe, is significant in the number. It's just, it is that the power of that 11, and like you said, the inner turmoil, because we as people are going to have that. We're going to have the doubts, and we're going to have different things or questioning, or either we're going to let people come in and say stuff to us and get in our heads, but it's that knowing that is there. It's not to necessarily just pat myself on the back, but I did get that I am statement, and and it's just that knowing. It's just I am. It's just that is that oneness. It is the energy. It is everything. It's everybody, and the rest is just experiences. It's just what we go through, and we allow ourselves to be held back when there really isn't any need to. And I'm as guilty as anyone, and I have to remind myself and bring it back to, okay, this is more to this. We can do this. We're already doing this.
Mm-hmm. I actually almost like that correlation of what you've been told before, because even if you don't believe it exactly the way Christianity is traditionally, if you think about Jesus, this is the pure unconditional love frequency. And something that you said when you were telling the story actually reminded me of that, because it's this man with dark skin and dark hair, and he's pulling you, he's guiding you, but he's so calm, and it's all about your hand and your heart, like it's coming through your hand into the heart, the healing, the heart energy, that calm steadiness. And I actually had that thought. I was like, is this Jesus?
Well, let me share this with you. I went quite a while, and as I said, it went about 3 years before I told anybody about it, and but it was just there was one time I was online and I was looking at some artwork and different things, and I don't really know why it was, but I came across this huge painting. I just saw it online, and it was called Prince of Peace,
Mhm.
and um, the artist, I guess she's over in Europe. I don't know if I'm gonna get the name right or not because I've never actually heard the name pronounced, but I'm gonna say Akain Kramaric. But if you were to Google Prince of Peace, it's like when I'm scrolling looking at just art and stuff because whatever reason, but I see this picture or this painting that she did, and it's like, holy crap, that's him. And this wasn't like right after. This was a few years afterwards, or at least a couple years afterwards, and it's like that's him. That's the guy that was pulling me. And when I decided to read on that, it was her Jesus that came to visit her, and she painted him. And it's just like that's the guy that was pulling me. No question, that was him. I remember getting chills all over as soon as I saw it, going, "Holy crap, that's him!" I just thought it was some guy. I didn't know. I knew I felt good. It was never a name or anything to anybody. It was just energy and the energy feeling and his confidence and his determination to go this direction and, let me know everything's fine. But so if anybody were ever to look that up, that's who I saw.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it this painting?
Yeah.
That's it? And that's what he looked like? You should lead with that, Roland. I met Jesus.
But I've had other people tell me that, but I believe that takes from
Yeah.
people want to put that into the story, and it's like he didn't come out and say, "Hey, this is my name, this is who I am." We did our thing, but it was just, and in the just like telling this, giving you the after effect is later on. It shocked me as much. It was a guy. It was some guy, some spirit with tons of energy that could calm me when he wanted to, and but when I saw that, it was literally just like, holy crap, that was him. It wasn't even, it was no doubt. As soon as I saw it, it's like, holy smokes, that's the one I saw. So then when the whole 11 thing was like, oh, okay, maybe so. We just take the spirits of the energy, the souls of everybody, his soul, everything, and just doing the work.
Well, I understand because I've met Jesus a few times in vision, and I know quite a few other healers and psychics and mediums who have as well, because
Yeah.
it's that pure frequency of love and that
Right.
calmness that you get. So, understanding it from that viewpoint, this is a beautiful meeting and NDE to have a beautiful guide to have through all of this into your purpose. I'm not sure about the 11 because I was holding in my brain that I thought it was Jesus until the 11 because he had 12 apostles, right? So I wasn't sure how the 11 quite fit unless we just threw Judas out. We're like, he doesn't count anymore.
Yeah, I don't think you
Yeah.
throw any of them out. I think what I mentioned, I think to you before, is when people mentioned about the 11 being, those 11, it's because a couple of them were trying to say this was the 12th, like me being the 12th or something.
Mm-mm.
But I honestly, that doesn't really pull or resonate to me. It's the fact it's just loving, it's the loving, it's the energy, this initiation. Um, but it was amazing amount of energy, amazing amount of energy.
I believe that. So the 11 will hold as the numerology energy that you needed because it's
Yeah.
that master number. So that really communicates exactly the frequency that you needed for your initiation.
Right.
This has been a beautiful journey, letting us, thanks for being so vulnerable and letting us hear this story and even learn from it in different ways that we can apply into our lives, even if we don't die in order to receive it,
Right.
like physically die. There's other ways to go through these levels of trust and self-value and self-initiation and then integration. Is there anything else you'd like us to know or anything you've got going on?
Well, just to know, it's just remember, we are all one. We are all I am. That message I also received several times. It's just I am in a triangle, and it's we are all that I am. We're all that oneness. Even if I'm not really a Christian and right, but even Jesus saying, I am. It's just every one of us is that. Nobody's greater, nobody's lesser, and we all have experiences we have to go through. I strongly believe that each one of us, through the soul's path, through the lessons to be learned, through experiences, chose this path, and we've got to play the role. But we're so much more. We're not. Even if things look really bad, we're still so much more because it's here. It's not here. This does help us survive. This helps us create, helps us do things, but the energy is here and it's that oneness. So let's just remember that. To you are your own healer, your own. I can't even put the words to it. It's just you are I am.
Thank you so much. That's a powerful message. It feels so guided. I can see like the white light all around your head and your shoulders. And I've been watching it throughout the last hour. And it like started here and then it went more here. And now it's kind of really spread out. So I like watching you channel.
Thank you. I just you made the comment about your mission, you being a missionary,
Mm.
and essentially, to a degree, we all are. And I was informed um, through a medium who I went to for a reading, and when I was getting these feelings about different things, and there's another scenario of me going in thinking I'm going to address this, and then the spirit takes it this way, but basically it comes back to you know your church, your missionary, and it's not like you said, it's not a church. It's different forms of missionary. So when you mentioned that earlier, it's like, yeah, I can relate because that's like my message.
Mm.
I don't let's not I'm not going to complicate it. Just let's feel it. Let's go there. Let's be there. And then watch the vibration grow. Watch it go.
We're going to talk more about that off air. Off air. Me
Oh.
and Roland going to talk about that. But thank you so much, Roland, for joining us again and coming in to have this conversation. I feel like it's been an important one.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you again and visiting with everybody. So thank you very much.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.